When I came back from the Marines, I didn't expect to trade one battlefield for another. I'd seen enough sand and chaos overseas to last a lifetime, and all I wanted was quiet, something steady, like the hum of a well-tuned engine or the creak of a porch swing at dusk. So when I moved in with my grandfather, Amos Miller, on his 40-acre spread just outside Willow Bend, Texas, it felt like a chance to rebuild. His land was no gated estate, just barbed wire, pecan trees, and a sky so big it could swallow every nightmare I carried home. Amos wasn't your typical old-timer. A Vietnam War vet, he still ironed his jeans and shined his boots every Sunday, as if the discipline kept the world in order. He was gruff enough to make a rattlesnake flinch, but there was a gentleness in how he spoke about the land, like it was a living thing that had stood by him through darker days. "This ground," he'd say, "it don't owe me nothing but peace, and I aim to keep it that way." Then there was the tractor. Not just any machine, but a 1967 John Deere 4020, its green paint chipped like old battle scars, its rear tires worn but proud. Amos had rebuilt it from the ground up after the war, every bolt and gear a testament to his survival. "It's honest," he told me once when I asked why he never upgraded. "Don't lie like people do." That tractor was more than steel to him. It was a brother, a lifeline, a piece of his soul. We worked the farm together, me learning the ropes under his steady hand. We weren't flashy up at dawn, done by dusk, tending alfalfa, fixing fences, and cursing the feral hogs that tore up the north pasture. Amos taught me to mind our own business. "Keep your land right, and you'll sleep sound," he'd say. "Let someone else mess with it, and you won't close your eyes again." Trouble started with a letter. It came in a crisp white envelope, slipped into our mailbox like an uninvited guest. At first, I thought it was junk mail, something about Silver Oaks HOA welcomes you to the community. The problem was, we weren't part of their community. Their subdivision, a sprawl of cookie-cutter mansions, had sprung up 3 years ago on what used to be open fields. They had matching mailboxes, timed sprinklers, and a knack for calling everything community, while acting like border patrol with pruning shears. The HOA's new president, Deborah Langley, was the kind of woman who didn't walk, she marched. Blonde hair pulled tight, heels that clicked like a metronome. She carried herself like she owned the horizon. Word around town was she'd inherited the development from her father, a real estate tycoon who'd built Silver Oaks before keeling over from a heart attack. She called herself a visionary curator, which sounded like something you'd find on a LinkedIn profile, not in a cattle town. The letter wasn't a welcome. It was a warning. Our tractor, described as a rusted agricultural relic visible from the subdivision road, was deemed a disruption to the aesthetic harmony of Silver Oaks. We had 72 hours to move it. Amos didn't even flinch. He grabbed a Sharpie, scrawled "Take a hike" across the letter, and mailed it back. "If they want that tractor," he muttered, "they better bring an army." I pulled the property maps that night, cross-referencing every survey I could find online. The verdict was clear. Our land was outside Silver Oaks' boundaries. Their rules didn't apply. I figured that'd be the end of it. But then came the second letter, this one with a fake gold seal and a sharper tone. "Non-compliance will result in enforcement action under HOA Code Section 14. I laughed. Amos didn't. He stared out toward the subdivision's glowing streetlights, his jaw tight. "Daniel," he said, low and steady. "This land's seen folks try to take it before banks, developers, now these clipboard crusaders. There's a line out there." He nodded at the boundary post I'd reinforced last spring. "And they best know what they're stepping into." It was a Saturday when it all went sideways. I'd driven into town at dawn to grab irrigation parts and some barbed wire. The hardware store was slammed, so I was gone longer than planned. Amos was on the porch when I left, sipping coffee, his old hound Rusty curled at his feet. The tractor sat by the barn, same as always. Nothing felt off. Not yet. Around 8 a.m., I got a text from Amos, just a photo of a tow truck. No words. I thought he was messing with me. The old man had a dry sense of humor. But something about the image, the dust, the tow hook gnawed at me. I called him. No answer. Called again. Nothing. My gut twisted. I floored it back to the farm, the truck rattling down the county road. From 200 yards out, I saw the chaos. The John Deere was tilted, its front end hoisted onto a flatbed, steel cables wrapped around its axle like chains on a prisoner. 2 men in polo shirts stood nearby, no badges, no uniforms, just logos that read Aesthetic Enforcement Unit. And there was Amos, 20 feet away, holding his Remington 870 shotgun, the barrel low but steady. His face was stone calm, but the kind of calm that comes before a storm. I slammed the truck door and ran toward them. "What the hell's going on?" I shouted. One of the men, wiry with sunglasses that looked bolted to his skull, turned to me. "This vehicle's been flagged as a visual hazard by Silver Oaks HOA. It's being removed per protocol." I blinked. "That tractor's on our land. We're not in your HOA. Who gave you the right to trespass?" The guy didn't budge. No further discussion needed. "Removal's in progress." Amos spoke then, his voice cutting through the dust. "Son, step back." I froze. He only called me son when the world was about to tilt. He took 2 steps forward, raising the shotgun just enough to make his point. "Touch that tractor again," he said, "and you're touching my kin. We bled together. You want to haul it off like trash, you'll have to go through me." The wiry guy's smirk had actually smirked and reached for the winch control. Amos didn't flinch, just tightened his grip on the shotgun. The second man, broader, stepped back and muttered into a radio, calling in HOA tactical support. I kid you not. He said it like they were SEAL Team 6. A black SUV rolled up, its door emblazoned with the Silver Oaks crest. Another enforcer stepped out, clipboard in hand, mirrored shades reflecting the morning sun. I pulled out my phone and started recording. "You're trespassing," I said, loud and clear. "This is being documented. Any move to take that tractor is theft." Nobody cared. The winch guy kept fiddling with the cable. The tow truck's engine growled. Then Amos did something that stopped time. He raised the shotgun skyward and fired. The blast roared across the fields, scattering birds from the trees. The cable snapped back. The winch guy dove behind the flatbed. The SUV's driver shouted, but I wasn't listening. Amos stepped forward. "I told you once. This is your second warning. You're on my ground now." They froze, hands off the tractor. This wasn't about rust or rules anymore. This was about a line. And the fight was just beginning. The echo of Amos's shotgun blast hung in the air like a warning bell. Dust settled around the tilted John Deere, its front end still chained to the flatbed. The 2 polo-shirt enforcers stood frozen, the wiry one clutching the winch remote like it might save him, the broader one muttering into his radio. The black SUV idled nearby, its driver a third enforcer with a clipboard and shades, shouting something about escalation protocols. I kept my phone recording, the lens steady on the scene. Amos stood like an oak, his Remington lowered but still in hand, his eyes locked on the men who dared cross his land. I stepped between them and the tractor, my voice sharp. "You've got 5 seconds to unhook that rig and get off this property. Everything you're doing is being recorded." The wiry guy finally spoke, his tone flat, like he was reading a script. "We're authorized under Silver Oaks HOA's aesthetic compliance order." "This ain't your subdivision," I snapped. "Show me one court order, one county map, anything that gives you jurisdiction here." The broader enforcer, whose vest read compliance lead, stepped closer, his boots crunching gravel. "We've got a revised map showing this property as part of the HOA annexation." Amos's voice cut through, low and steady. "And I've got a shotgun. So I suggest we compare paperwork real slow." Before anyone could respond, a sheriff's cruiser pulled into the drive, lights flashing but no siren. 2 deputies stepped out, one young, eyes wide like he'd just walked into a movie, and an older one with a mustache that screamed authority. The younger deputy spoke first. "We got a call about a man with a firearm threatening civilians." I didn't miss a beat. "That's my grandfather," I said, tapping the chest cam I'd clipped on out of habit. "And the only thing he's threatening is anyone dumb enough to steal his tractor. We've got the deed, the zoning maps, and this footage. They've got nothing but nerve and a fake logo." The older deputy, whose badge read Carter, stepped between us, hands raised. "No one's moving anything till we talk to the county." That's when she arrived. Deborah Langley, Silver Oaks HOA president, stepped out of the SUV like she was walking onto a red carpet. Navy blazer, tablet in hand. She carried a megaphone like it was a scepter. "Under Silver Oaks Bylaw 9.4, she announced, her voice amplified. "This machinery is classified as a visual pollutant and must be removed." I couldn't help it. I laughed. "You call that a law? You're quoting a pamphlet." Deborah marched forward, waving her tablet like it was the Constitution. This annexation map places this property within HOA jurisdiction. Deputy Carter took the tablet, his brow furrowing. No county seal. No survey number. This ain't official. It's part of our community expansion plan, Deborah snapped. That's not law, I shot back. That's a PowerPoint. Amos stepped forward, speaking to the deputies, not her. That tractor carried me through worse than HOA complaints. I built it after my wife passed. Kept me alive when nothing else could. Deborah's smile twitched. She turned to the tow crew. Resume removal. The wiry guy reached for the winch. Amos chambered a shell, raised the barrel skyward, and fired again. The blast scattered dust and nerves. The cable snapped loose. Even the pecan trees seemed to hold their breath. The younger deputy reached for his sidearm, but Carter stopped him with a look. No one moves another damn inch, he growled. Not till zoning confirms boundaries. Deborah tried to argue. This is harassment. You're obstructing community management. Carter turned on her. Ma'am, you're one sentence from obstruction of justice. She went quiet, but her eyes burned. The tow crew backed off, the enforcers shuffled, and Deborah climbed into her SUV, fuming. I stood by the tractor, chest cam still rolling, feeling like I was guarding a monument. Because for Amos, that's exactly what it was. Deborah wasn't used to losing. She stood by her SUV, flanked by her hired muscle, her designer flats sinking into the dirt. For a moment, nobody moved. The deputies waited, the enforcers hesitated, and Amos stood firm, shotgun now resting against his shoulder. Deborah adjusted her blazer, trying to reclaim control. I am the legal successor to Silver Oaks Development, she declared, as if we cared. My father built this community from nothing. I must unify this area under cohesive governance. Your farm. She glared at me. It's an eyesore. This isn't a museum. This is progress. I crossed my arms. Lady, you inherited a gated suburb and a pile of debt. That's not legacy, that's baggage. Her jaw clenched. She turned to the tow crew again. Proceed. This is documented as within our jurisdiction. Carter stepped in front of the flatbed. Ma'am, I said nothing moves till we get county confirmation. Deborah's face twitched, her polish cracking. Then call the county now, she demanded, thrusting her tablet forward. I have maps showing the annexation was approved. I walked toward her. Show me. She hesitated, then shoved the screen at me. It was a sleek site plan, our property shaded in blue. But I'd worked with surveyors in the Marines. Something was off. I zoomed in. These aren't county stamps, I said, pointing to the footer. These are design drafts. No approval date, no parcel number, no seal. It's a proposal, not a deed. Carter took the tablet, squinting. He's right. This ain't official. Deborah's composure shattered. You think I don't know how to expand a community? She hissed. You've got rusting junk, barbed wire, and a shack that hasn't seen paint since Nixon. You think that raises property values? Amos chuckled, dry and low. Ma'am, that shack's got more dignity than your entire neighborhood. The tow guy snorted, and Deborah whipped her head at him. You're on my payroll. Don't forget it. But the cracks were showing. Her enforcers looked away, boots shuffling. She saw it and snapped. You'll regret this, she growled. I've got lawyers who make judges sweat. This land will be Silver Oaks. You're just stalling. I stepped closer, camera rolling. No, Deborah. What you're doing is fraud. You faked maps, trespassed, and tried to steal property you don't own in front of witnesses. Carter nodded. We'll be filing a report with the DA. I suggest you steer clear of this property. Deborah didn't reply. She stormed back to her SUV, the dust swirling behind her. One of the enforcers, the broad one, leaned toward me quietly. For what it's worth, we didn't know. She said it was approved. Paid cash. I believed him, but it didn't change the violation. As the tow crew unhooked the tractor, I walked to Amos. He exhaled slowly, his eyes on the horizon. Ever feel a storm coming, Daniel, but the sky's still clear? I nodded. This wasn't over. It was just the wind picking up. The next 48 hours were a blur. Amos went back to his routine, tending his garden, but I saw the change. He cleaned the tractor twice, polished its fuel cap like it was a metal. The Remington stayed in the kitchen corner, freshly oiled. I dove into research, pulling every map, deed, and county record I could find. I called in favors from Marine Buddies guys who'd gone into law or public records. One connected me with Clara Hensley, a real estate attorney out of Austin with a reputation for chewing up developers like Deborah and spitting them out. Clara showed up the next morning, her boots sinking into the dirt as she climbed the porch steps. "Let me guess," she said, skipping the handshake. "HOA thinks they can annex your whole damn life." I grinned. "Close. They tried to steal my grandfather's tractor and lied to the sheriff to do it." "That's even better," she said, her eyes glinting. "That's felony territory." We spread the evidence on the dining table: Deborah's fake map, my chest cam footage, screenshots from Silver Oak's website. Clara zeroed in on the map. "See this watermark?" She pointed to a faint pattern. "That's from a marketing firm, not a surveyor. This is all flash, no substance." She leaned back. "Deborah's using HOA funds like her personal piggy bank. This isn't harassment, it's organized overreach. If we're lucky, it's embezzlement." We dug deeper, pulling HOA meeting minutes via public records requests. Most expenses were routine landscaping, signage, but one line item stood out. Aesthetic Realignment Initiative, $92,000 paid to a company with no online presence. Clara ran the tax ID. "Guess who owns it?" she said, sliding me a printout. I didn't need to guess. Deborah Langley. The revelation about Deborah Langley's shell company hit like a grenade. That $92,000 Aesthetic Realignment Initiative wasn't just a line item, it was a paper trail leading straight to her. Clara Hensley, our attorney, sat at Amos's dining table, her coffee mug leaving rings on the wood as she flipped through the printouts. "This isn't sloppy," she said, her voice sharp. "It's brazen. Deborah created a fake company, funneled HOA funds into it, and hired those goons to play repo man. No contracts, no licenses, just polos and a tow truck." I leaned back, the weight of it sinking in. "So she's not just a control freak. She's a crook." Clara nodded. "And she almost got away with it. If Amos hadn't pulled that shotgun, they'd have hauled your tractor off, and you'd be fighting this in court for years." Amos, sitting quietly at the table's end, polished a pocket knife, his eyes distant. "They ain't the first to try taking what's mine," he said. "Won't be the last." Clara's team moved fast. They sent FOIA requests to the county, pulling every document tied to Silver Oaks HOA. By the next afternoon, we had a spreadsheet of their expenditures. Most were mundane, but buried in the numbers were more red flags: vague consulting fees, payments to unregistered vendors, and another $15,000 labeled Boundary Adjustment Research. Clara smirked. "Research my ass. That's code for bribing someone to look the other way." Then came the bombshell. One of Clara's clerks called late that day, her voice buzzing with excitement. "You need to see this." She'd found records of Silver Oaks targeting other properties outside their jurisdiction. Deborah had been running a campaign of intimidation, sending letters to homeowners about visual noncompliance and community standards. A retired mechanic got a notice about his vintage truck. A widow was warned that her garden shed was unpermitted. None of these people lived in Silver Oaks. Deborah was using fake maps and legal jargon to bully them into compliance or to force them to sell. "This isn't enforcement," Clara said, slamming her pen down. "It's a land grab dressed up as neighborhood watch." I looked at Amos, expecting a reaction, but he just kept polishing that knife, slow and deliberate. "Folks like her," he said, "they don't stop till you make 'em." We decided to hit back hard. Clara filed complaints with the county zoning board, the state licensing department, and the district attorney's office. I took it a step further, sending our evidence body cam footage, fake maps, and Alto every news outlet within 200 miles. Then I uploaded the video of the standoff to YouTube, titled, "HOA Tries to Steal Grandpa's Tractor, Didn't Expect a Marine." I didn't expect much, just a way to get the truth out. By morning, it had 60,000 views. By the next day, 250,000. Comments poured in. "Give that old man a medal. HOAs are legalized mafias. Where do I send Amos a beer?" The video's spread caught Deborah off guard. Local news picked it up, running headlines like "Texas Vet Stands Ground Against HOA Overreach." A radio host called it the Battle of Miller Farm. But the real impact came from the others Deborah had targeted. People started emailing my neighbors, strangers, even a farmer 2 counties over. They'd gotten similar letters, fake notices, and visits from compliance officers. One woman said she sold her lot because she couldn't afford a lawyer to fight. That lit a fire in me. This wasn't just about our tractor anymore. It was about everyone Deborah had tried to steamroll. Clara organized a meeting with the other victims. We gathered in Amos's barn, a dozen folks sitting on hay bales and folding chairs. There was Ellen, a retiree whose porch swing was deemed unsightly. Carl, a mechanic threatened with fines over his boat. And Maria, a single mom who got a letter about her kids' bikes being visual clutter. They were angry, scared, but mostly tired of being pushed around by a woman who thought her HOA badge made her queen. Clara laid out the plan. "We've got enough for a class action lawsuit," she said. "Deborah's operation is a house of cards, fake documents, misappropriated funds, unlicensed enforcers. We take this to court, and we bury her." Ellen raised a shaky hand. "What if she comes after us? She's got money, lawyers." Amos, who'd been quiet, spoke up. "Ma'am, she's got a loud mouth and a bad plan. We've got the truth. That's heavier." The group nodded, resolve hardening. I felt it to a shift, like we weren't just victims anymore. We were a unit, like my old squad in the Marines. Clara filed the lawsuit the next day, naming Deborah, the HOA treasurer, and the vice president as defendants. The charges were heavy: fraud, theft, misappropriation, and filing false reports. We also requested an injunction to stop Silver Oaks from contacting any of us until the case was resolved. Deborah didn't take it lying down. 2 days later, a cease and desist letter arrived, claiming our defamatory video was damaging Silver Oaks' reputation. It demanded we remove it and issue a public apology. Amos read it, chuckled, and tossed it in the burn barrel. "She's scared," he said. "Good." The viral video kept climbing, hitting 500,000 views. It wasn't just locals watching now. People from California, Ohio, even Canada were chiming in. The comment section became a battleground. Some cheered Amos's stand. "This is what America is about, protecting what's yours." Others called him reckless. "Firing a shotgun? That's how people get hurt." A few defended HOAs. "Rules keep neighborhoods nice. That tractor's an eyesore." I read every comment, struck by how one tractor could spark so much debate. Was Amos a hero or a hothead? Was Deborah a villain or just misguided? The truth, I figured, was somewhere in the dust between them. Clara's team uncovered more dirt. The Aesthetic Realignment Initiative wasn't a one-off. Deborah had been siphoning HOA funds for years, paying herself through shell companies for consulting and community planning. The treasurer, a nervous guy named Harold, had signed off without question. The vice president, a realtor named Susan, pushed Deborah's agenda to boost property values in her commissions. It was a racket, and our farm was just the latest target. One night, as Amos and I sat on the porch, Rusty snoring between us, I asked him why he'd risked so much for the tractor. He took a slow sip of coffee. "Daniel, when you lose what matters, your wife, your buddies, your peace, you hold tight to what's left. That tractor ain't just steel. It's me still standing." I nodded, understanding more than I could say. For him, that line in the dirt wasn't just about property. It was about survival. The lawsuit moved faster than expected. Clara's connections in the DA's office pushed our case to the top, thanks to the public outcry. We got a court date, 3 weeks out. Deborah's lawyers tried to delay, filing motions about jurisdictional ambiguity, but the judge wasn't having it. "This isn't a debate club," he said at a preliminary hearing. "Bring evidence or sit down." As the court date loomed, tension grew. Someone slashed my truck's tires one night. A Silver Oaks Forever sign appeared on the road near our gate, spray-painted with "Sell or Else." Amos didn't blink. He just repainted the tractor, choosing a green so bright it could blind a hawk. "Let him see it from their mansions," he said, grinning. I stenciled "Don't touch one tried" on the side, per his request. It wasn't just defiance. It was a declaration. The night before the hearing, Clara came by with a thick folder. "This is it," she said. "Emails, bank records, witness statements. Deborah's done." I flipped through the pages, stopping at an email from Deborah to her treasurer. "Once the tractor's gone, the old man will break. The rest will fall in line." It was cold, calculated, like a general planning a siege. I showed it to Amos. He didn't say a word, just nodded and went to clean his Remington. The county courthouse in Willow Bend was a squat, brick building that looked like it hadn't changed since the 1950s. Inside, the air was chilled to Arctic levels, as if justice needed to be kept on ice. Amos and I sat in the front row, he in a denim jacket and a BOLO tie he hadn't worn since my grandmother's funeral, me in the only suit I owned, still stiff from disuse. The gallery was packed, neighbors, reporters, even some of the folks Deborah had bullied, all waiting to see if the line Amos drew in the dirt would hold. Amos sat ramrod straight, his jaw tight, the same look he'd had facing down the tow truck. This wasn't just a lawsuit for him, it was a war, fought not with shotguns, but with evidence and words. Across the aisle, Deborah Langley sat behind a trio of lawyers, all in identical gray suits, their hair slicked back like they'd raided a gel factory. She looked smaller without her megaphone, her pearls, and pressed blazer, a weak armor against the storm coming her way. Her eyes darted to the judge's bench, avoiding us entirely. Clara Hensley strode in, her boots clicking on the tile, a stack of folders under her arm. She'd warned us this wouldn't be a quick fight. Deborah's got money, she'd said the night before. Her lawyers will spin this like she's Mother Teresa saving the suburbs. But we've got the truth in a jury that's sick of HOA nonsense. I glanced at the jury, a mix of farmers, retirees, and a few younger folks who looked like they'd rather be anywhere else. I hope Clara was right. The DA's team, backed by Clara's evidence, opened with a sledgehammer. They laid out the case like a crime scene. Forged annexation maps, $92,000 funneled through Deborah's shell company, unlicensed enforcement, crews trespassing on private land, and false reports to law enforcement. They played my chest cam footage on a courtroom screen, the tow truck, the polos, Amos's shotgun blast splitting the air. Gasps rippled through the gallery when Deborah's voice boomed through her megaphone, demanding the tractor's removal even as deputies stood there. Clara called our first witness, Ellen, the retiree who'd gotten a letter about her porch swing. She spoke softly, hands trembling, but her story was ironclad. They said my swing was lowering property values. I lived 2 miles from Silver Oaks. I thought I'd lose my home. Next was Carl, the mechanic, who described a compliance officer threatening fines over his boat. I checked my deed, he said. I ain't in their HOA. They just kept coming. Maria, the single mom, nearly broke down, recounting how a letter about her kids' bikes made her feel like a criminal. I worked 2 jobs, she said. I couldn't fight them. Then it was my turn. I took the stand, swore the oath, and told the story from the beginning, the letters, the tow truck, Deborah's fake map. I described Amos's stand, how he called the tractor his kin, how he fired to protect what was his. This wasn't about a machine, I said, looking at the jury. It was about a man who'd already lost too much, refusing to let someone steal what kept him whole. The footage played again, and I saw a juror, a gray-haired woman, wipe her eyes. Amos went last. He stood slowly, hands clasped behind him, his voice steady but heavy. That tractor, he said, I built it after my Mary died. It kept me moving when I didn't want to. It's part of this land, same as me. They tried to take it like it was nothing. But some things ain't for taking. The courtroom fell silent, the weight of his words settling like dust after a storm. Even the judge, a stern man with a face like granite, seemed to lean forward. Deborah's lawyers fought back. They claimed it was all a misunderstanding, that Deborah believed in good faith that our land fell under Silver Oaks jurisdiction. They painted her as a visionary, working to elevate the community. One lawyer, a smooth talker named Grayson, tried to spin Amos as a loose cannon. Firing a shotgun in a populated area, he said, raising an eyebrow. That's not defense, it's endangerment. I saw a few jurors shift uncomfortably, and my stomach tightened. Were they buying it? Then the DA dropped the hammer. They presented an email chain from Deborah's HOA account. Subject line, Expansion Phase 1. In it, she outlined a plan to absorb nearby properties by targeting visual outliers, like our tractor. One line stood out. Remove the tractor, and the old man will fold. The rest will follow. The jury's faces hardened. Grayson tried to object, claiming the emails were out of context, but the judge overruled him. Context is what we're here for, he said dryly. The prosecution called Harold, the HOA treasurer, who'd turned state's witness to save himself. He admitted signing off on Deborah's payments, knowing they were shady. She said it was for the community, he mumbled, avoiding her glare. Susan, the vice president, was next, her testimony a mess of deflections. I trusted Deborah's vision, she said, but the jury wasn't impressed. The tow truck driver, a guy named Mitch, sealed it. She paid us cash, he said. Told us the property was HOA land. We didn't know it was a lie. Deborah took the stand, her voice polished but brittle. "I acted in the best interest of Silver Oaks," she said. "My father's legacy is a thriving community, and I was protecting that." Clara cross-examined her relentlessly. "So you forged maps, hired unlicensed enforcers, and spent $92,000 of HOA funds on a fake company you owned all for community?" Deborah stammered, her composure cracking. "It was an oversight," she said. "The jury didn't buy it." Closing arguments were brutal. The DA painted Deborah as a predator, using her HOA as a weapon to bully and steal. Clara leaned hard on the human cost: families intimidated, homes threatened, all for Deborah's ego. Grayson tried to salvage it, framing Amos's shotgun as proof of unreasonable escalation. "Who's the real threat here?" he asked. I held my breath, praying the jury saw through it. They did. After 4 hours of deliberation, the foreman read the verdict: guilty on all counts. Deborah Langley was sentenced to 20 months in county jail, ordered to pay $250,000 in restitution to victims, and fines. Harold and Susan got probation, hefty fines, and lifetime bans from HOA rolls. The shell company was dissolved, and Silver Oaks was placed under state oversight for a full audit. Deborah didn't cry or shout, she just stared at the floor, like she was waiting for it to swallow her. As the gavel fell, I looked at Amos. He wasn't watching Deborah. His eyes were on the American flag behind the judge, steady and unyielding. I understood why. This wasn't about her punishment. It was about the line he'd drawn, and knowing it still meant something. Outside, reporters swarmed us. Clara handled them like a pro, but Amos waved them off. "Ain't much to say," he grunted. "Land's still mine. Tractor's still green." We drove home in silence, the weight of the wind settling in. But I knew it wasn't over. Not yet. There was one more fight to finish. The sun was setting over Willow Bend as Amos and I pulled into the farm's long dirt drive, the truck's tires crunching gravel. The John Deere sat by the barn, free of cables and tow trucks, its chipped paint catching the last light like a badge of honor. The courtroom victory was still fresh, but it didn't feel like a parade moment. It felt like coming home after a long patrol relief, but with eyes still scanning the horizon. Deborah Langley was behind bars, her HOA empire crumbling, but the fight had left scars, and not just the ones you could see. That weekend, Amos insisted on repainting the tractor. He didn't ask for help, just grabbed a can of paint from the sheet of green so vivid it could have doubled as a traffic signal. "If they're gonna stare," he said, brushing on the first coat, "might as well give him something to look at." I watched him work, slow and deliberate, like he was dressing a wound. When he was done, I stenciled his chosen words on the side in bold white letters: "Don't touch one tried." It wasn't just a warning. It was a monument. We set up lawn chairs by the barn, cracked open a couple of Shiner, and sat in silence as the paint dried. Rusty, Amos's old hound, sprawled between us, snoring like a busted chainsaw. The air was thick with the smell of fresh paint and alfalfa. Peace had returned, but it wasn't the same quiet we'd known before. This one carried weight, earned through every letter, every confrontation, every second of that courtroom battle. It was the kind of peace you fight for, not the kind you stumble into. The community didn't let it fade quietly. A week later, a group of local veterans organized a surprise gathering at the farm, calling it Operation Line in the Sand. They rolled in with pickup trucks loaded with brisket, flags, and enough beer to float a barge. By noon, the barn was a makeshift museum of Amos's life, his Vietnam medals pinned to a board, black and white photos of him and my grandmother, and, of course, the tractor, gleaming like a war hero. Neighbors showed up, then strangers, until the pasture was packed with folks swapping stories and raising glasses. Amos stood by the tractor, his hand resting on its hood like it was a comrade's shoulder. "This here," he said to the crowd, his voice rough but clear, "ain't just steel. It's what it looks like when you decide what stays and what goes. Some things ain't meant to be taken." The veterans cheered, and I saw Clara, who'd driven in from Austin, wipe a tear. She leaned over to me. "Your grandpa's a damn legend." The story went beyond Willow Bend. News outlets ran pieces with headlines like "Texas Vet Defeats HOA Goliath" and "The Tractor That Stopped a Tyrant." My YouTube video hit 2 million views, and the comment section was a wildfire of opinions. "Amos is a hero," one wrote. "HOAs are a scam," another argued. Firing a shotgun was reckless. Someone could have died. A third chimed in. Deborah was wrong. But that tractor is an eyesore. The debates raged about property rights, community rules, the line between defiance and danger. It struck me how a single machine could spark such division, how it could be a symbol of freedom to some and chaos to others. The fallout kept coming. Silver Oaks HOA, under state oversight, elected a new board, one that promised transparency and swore off expansion dreams. The audit uncovered more of Deborah's schemes. Over $300,000 misappropriated over 5 years, funneled to fake vendors and personal accounts. Homeowners in the subdivision, furious, filed their lawsuits, demanding refunds. Deborah's mansion went up for sale, a for sale sign stabbed into her manicured lawn like a final insult. Word was she'd serve her sentence quietly, no appeals, her lawyers out of tricks. The other victims we'd rallied. Ellen, Carl, Maria, and the rest found their closure. Ellen put her porch swing back up, bolder than ever. Carl parked his boat front and center, daring anyone to complain. Maria framed the dismissal of her bike violation and hung it in her living room. They'd all come to the farm that day, not just as guests, but as survivors, bound by a fight none of us had wanted but none of us could avoid. Clara stayed in touch, her firm taking on more HOA cases as the story spread. You and Amos started something, she told me over coffee a month later. People are checking their deeds, calling out bad boards. That tractor's a rallying cry. I smiled, but part of me wondered if we'd just traded one battle for another. The slashed tires, the threatening sign, those hadn't been random. Someone out there still saw us as the enemy. But Amos never wavered. Let him come, he said one night, cleaning his Remington. They'll find the same line. Life settled into a new rhythm. I took over more of the farm's daily work, letting Amos ease into mornings with his coffee and Rusty. The tractor roared to life every time we needed it, its bright green a middle finger to anyone who'd tried to erase it. I'd catch Amos staring at it sometimes, not with pride, but with something deeper, like he was seeing my grandmother, his old squad, all the pieces of himself he'd poured into its steel. One evening, as we sat on the porch, the sky streaked with pink and gold, Amos spoke up. Daniel, have you ever thought about why we fought so hard? I shrugged. It was the right thing to do. He shook his head. Nah, it's more than that. It's about knowing who you are when the world tries to tell you different. That tractor, this land, it's us. Lose that, and you lose yourself. I nodded, the truth of it settling deep. For Amos, the line wasn't just in the dirt. It was in his bones. The story of Miller Farm became a kind of legend, not just in Texas, but across the country. People sent letters, some with photos of their tractors or tools, calling them their line in the sand. A songwriter in Nashville even wrote a ballad about the man who kept his green, and damn if it didn't get airplay. But for us, the victory was quieter. It was the hum of the engine, the creak of the gate, the knowledge that we'd held our ground and come out whole. As I write this, the tractor still sits by the barn, its paint a little chipped again, but no less defiant. Amos is out there now, tinkering with a fence post, Rusty at his heels. The world keeps turning, but our corner of it feels solid, unshaken. Deborah is gone, her schemes exposed, her power broken. The line we drew held, not just for us, but for everyone who stood with us. And every time I start that engine, I don't just hear diesel. I hear legacy, the kind you fight for, the kind you keep. Thank you for following the story of Amos, Daniel, and the stand at Miller Farm. This tale isn't just about a tractor, it's about what happens when ordinary people face injustice and choose to fight. But it also raises tough questions. Was Amos right to pull that shotgun, or did he cross a line into recklessness? Is violence ever justified to protect what's yours, or does it only deepen the divide? And what about Deborah? Was she a villain through and through, or a product of a system that rewards control over compassion? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Share your take on the story, on Amos's defiance, on Deborah's downfall. Where do you stand on the balance between personal freedom and community rules? Have you faced your own line in the sand moment? Let's get the conversation going. Your voice matters, and these debates are what keeps stories like this alive. Drop your thoughts, and let's see where this discussion takes us.